and welcome to another edition of the Playoff Coaches Perspective here on Riverside TV as we are in week 2 of the playoffs. A lot of Riverside teams still hanging in there. But before we start talking about it, let's bring in my co-host, always my man in the booth, my dear friend, the great Ghazal Hassan. How you doing today, Ghazal?
Coming to you live from Palo Alto, so pretty good, pretty good. By the way, I learned something about Ken Mashinsky. He's got a great new answer for anything. You know, honey, take out the trash, 70. Honey, can you use dishes? 70. Honey, can you walk the dog? 70. Jeff, 70 points for your Rams, 70.
But, you know, you and I have seen them play a number of times this year. We've seen them stymied by Norte Vista. But this kind of looked like a Ramona team we've seen the last few years, a la Bo Bruins, a la Nate Johnson. But now it's Acosta, Valenzuela. There's some pretty darn good players right now playing for Ramona.
Yeah, it was just their day. I think it was just their day. I mean, and I do think playing Norte Vista probably prepared them a little bit. I think they were grateful. It was a lot of gratitude for them actually even getting in the playoffs. So they figured if they get in the playoffs, they just stick around for a little bit. And hey, 4th straight year, the Rams have won their first round game.
I mean, that's an incredible stat. Coach Mush has made the playoffs every year except that goofy COVID year. But let's talk about their next opponent, Palmdale, and that will be at home. You and I are going to be on that game. What do you know about Palmdale so far?
They're very good. I mean, Palmdale's a great program. They have made, I don't think they made it last year, but I believe they've made a CIF semifinal. You know, they've gone to the semifinals, I think either 3 of the last 4 or 3 of the last 5 years. They've had a little bit of a coaching change with the program. You know, a long-standing, if you go back, I mean, you go back about 10 years. They've been very, very successful. They've not gotten the elusive CIF title yet, but they're always a tough out in the playoffs, and they play particularly well on the road. So Ramona's got to be careful.
Yeah, I mean, Ramona couldn't have played any better than they did last on Friday night. But what do you think the biggest surprise was? Was it the offensive line? Was it just everybody kind of just playing their spot? And just, I mean, it just seemed like everything was hitting on all cylinders, especially when you hit 70 points.
I mean, the 70 points, obviously. I mean, but I mean, I agree with a couple other people that talked about how good the Ramona defense was, because that wasn't a pushover offense. That was an offense with weapons. And that was an offense that knows what they're doing. And Chris Shattuck and Gary Hedlund do a great job over there. So I was just really impressed with Gabe Guzman, the defensive coordinator for Ramona, and the entire defensive staff there, the work that they did and the work the players did. And we talked about it on the game, Jeff. Ever since Ken Mashinsky got to Ramona on tackling, that team is always very, very fundamentally sound. And it took factor on Friday in that game against San Gorgonio.
Well, I'll tell you what, we're going to have that game Friday night, but also in Division 11 is we have a couple local teams. We have Patriot versus Riverside Poly on the other side of that Division 11 bracket. What are your thoughts on this game? I mean, this is a big one. Poly has been winning some big games, and of course, Patriot finally making a automatic qualifier in the River Valley League.
You know, it's kind of like looking in a mirror, right? They both play really good defense. They try to run the football. You know, Miramontes, obviously the 3-year starter at quarterback, maybe gives Patriot a little bit of an advantage, but you guys talked about it on the pep rally on Friday. The calling has switched coach back and played. Poly is 4-0. And remember something, they got healthy, and they were missing some key guys on both sides of the ball. Even when they were banged up, they were playing pretty solid defense, and I mean, they just figured it out. That's a team that's definitely a sleeper. And you tip your cap to Coach Gilbert and his staff. They went on the road to Esperanza, not an easy place to win. And I don't want to say they won easily, but that game was fairly well in hand. I think they ran out, Jeff, if I'm not mistaken, to a 17-0 lead.
Yeah, I mean, it's incredible what Coach Gilbert's been able to do, you know, kind of piecing together this offense. A pretty dominant running game, and defensively they've been solid. But I'll tell you, how cool would it be to have an all-Riverside final, whether it be Patriot, Poly versus Ramona on the other side of the bracket?
Yeah, listen, and you know, you and I know Chris Fowler, and he's always great to us, and he always is easy to get in hold of. And finally, they've kind of put it all together. There are a bunch of guys who a couple of years ago were freshmen and sophomores, and they've grown and matured. And he's got a very solid core of players that have been varsity players for 2 and 3 years, largely on that. And their offensive line is very good. So that to me is going to be the key matchup, is the offensive line for Patriot against the front seven for Poly, because the front seven for Poly is playing really well. They played really well all year, and now they're finally healthy.
Well, it's going to be a good one. We're going to have a doubleheader on Friday night. You and I will be on the first call, Ramona versus Palmdale, and of course, JR and Nick will be on the call for Poly Patriot. But we also have another team playing, and it's the great Jason McMains over at Martin Luther King. They're going to play Salesian this week. What do you think about their odds? I mean, they played great, 35-6, I believe, last week.
I was actually impressed, because I was looking at Lakewood, and Lakewood is pretty good. I mean, they had some dudes on that team, and Coach Utopo, played at Notre Dame. He played at Lakewood, so there's a little bit of local pride there. He knows the game, and he's got a great staff over there. And Lakewood, they were tested because they played in that Moore League with Long Beach Poly and Millikan and Jordan. So, they played some tough teams. And I wasn't surprised. Listen, they got to come a long way. It was a road game for them. And King, I think, is the 3 seed in that division. But just the way they were able to dominate that team, I think bodes well for King. But as you know, Jeff, it's the playoffs. There are no easy games in the playoffs. Everybody is looking to make a run, and a win for King to get them back to the CIF semifinals for the first time since 2016.
Well, I'll tell you, it would be great. We've talked about Blake Bowen. We've talked about the great Sam Green. Some big-time offensive and defensive weapons for King.
Yeah, I mean, and Coach McMahon knows how to use them. He took over the play calling this year, and it was a little bit of an uncomfortable situation for him to want to take it back, but I understood why he did it, because he wanted to go back to what he was doing. Remember a couple of years ago when you and I covered him when they were at Notre Dame under Coach Aaron Huerta, who's now at Harvard Westlake, and he's doing all those creative things. I think we did the first game when Blake Bowen came back, and he was able to already throw in a bunch of wrinkles. And remember that offensive line, I think 3 of them are back next year. You got big Chris Hicks in the middle, and then you got a bunch of guys who are going to come back next year. And the defense, Javez Robinson's defense has been pretty good. They were really good against Lakewood. Lakewood is a team that can put some points up. And again, I was impressed by the Wolves defense.
Well, Ghazal, we're going to have hopefully another pep rally Friday night. You and I are going to come up with our all-league team, or I should say our all-city teams. Have you started to get that thing together without giving away anything?
Yeah. It's just exciting all around, right? Like, we got playoff games on Friday. We, in essence, have a de facto playoff game Saturday as well, correct?
Oh, yeah. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about Coach Kraft and the Tigers. I mean, heck, they finally gave up a few points here in November, but how spectacular have they been as they go into this matchup against their big rival, Fullerton College?
Yeah, we're going to have to talk to James Cook. I mean, Coach Cook, what are you doing? You're giving up 13 points. I'm kidding. So they had 3 straight shutouts in October. And, hey, Mesa's no joke. They're a tough team, and they went down and beat them fairly handily. But here it is. This is what everybody was waiting for, right? So, it's interesting because a playoff spot may hang in the balance here. The winner gets the automatic bid, and there's always an at-large team in. Now, most people are saying that whomever loses this game, whether it be Fulton or RCC, is still going to get that at-large bid. But Coach Kraft and Coach Campbell, they're not going to want to leave anything to chance. And I think for Fullerton, they have a little bit of payback on their mind after the Southern California final last year. And then obviously for Coach Kraft and his staff, hey, they want to run the table. They want to go 10-0 again. They want to be the number 1 seed. Remember, Southern California hosts the final, the state final this year. So if they, whoever wins in Southern California, who gets to the state final, they will host it down here in Southern California. And I think both Fullerton and RCC are thinking about that. They're obviously not thinking about it right now. They're only thinking about Saturday. But once you get into a playoff situation, they both would love to host the state championship.
Well, I'll tell you what, Fullerton has a brand new stadium. Wheelock over at Riverside is refurbished to a point where, we're having fans luckily we having fans, but we're going to have another great one. I believe it's a 12 o'clock start on Saturday as well.
I'll see you at noon, Jeff.
All right, well, he is Gonzalez on, and when we come back, we're going to have Coach Fowler, Coach McMains, Mush, and Pep Fernandez, all here on the playoff edition of the Coach's Perspective here on Riverside TV. And welcome back to the Coach's Perspective here on Riverside TV, as I am now joined by my favorite coach in the whole world of my Ramona Rams, the great Ken Mashinsky. How are you today, buddy?
Hey, I'm doing well, Jeff. Thanks for having me on, brother.
Well, Coach, I'm telling you, it seems like every single year you're getting wins in the playoffs. This Ramona team, a rebuild of 27 players, 18 starters. You put up 70 points last week against a 9-1 team. I want to say this. It was the ghost of Bo Bruins, the ghost of Nate Johnson, and the ghost of Ramona's past that I'm telling you, had Acosta, Valenzuela, Sincere Tolbert. I mean, great games from everybody. What happened?
Yeah, we've been talking about, gosh, when one of these days we're going to put this together and we're going to have a pretty good team. Our guys are coming together and they're working real hard. We've always been missing something, either offensively or defensively, something. And they clicked on Friday night against Sanji, and it was pretty electric. I mean, offensively, we put up. I think we scored 7 touchdowns, and then defensively we scored 3 times, which is unheard of. So I was real proud of the boys. They were super pumped, and they are very, very excited to get after Palmdale on Friday night.
Well, I have to mention this because I don't think a lot of people saw this, and I could be wrong, but you guys blocked a punt in the end zone, but the kid caught it. It was off his foot, and it landed. Did it bounce, or did it just go right in his hand?
Yeah, so Gabriel Serrato, our defensive tackle, kind of broke through and blocked it, and Gavin McGowan was playing defensive end, and it just kind of landed right in his hands. I mean, I didn't really see it completely during the game, so I had to look at it on tape to get to understand it fully. But it was a great play, and it just revs up the crowd and your team when stuff like that happens. And we were real fortunate to come away with a big win against Sanji. Very well coached team. Coach Chaddock over there does a fantastic job, and I know that they'll be back in the playoffs. He's back at his alma mater, so we're just real happy we got through round 1 and looking forward to round 2.
Well, Coach, we also have to mention your kicker. That's like he was 10 for 10. I don't care if they were worm burners or however. The guy made 10 in a row. That's like getting 10 free throws in a row. I hope you did something nice for that young man.
Jose did such a fantastic job. I saw him super early this morning when I got to school, and I said, dude, you were 10 for 10. I think that's a new record at Ramona. But it wasn't just that. Obviously his PATs were great, but his kickoffs were fantastic. He was putting it, down to the 1. I think he was inside the 5 every time. And when you're starting way back in your own field position, it's a huge weapon to have someone that can kick it almost all the way to the end zone. He had a couple that were in the end zone, but we're just real proud of him. He's being real consistent, and it's fun coaching him.
Now, is he the goalie on the soccer team too?
He is, yeah. He's an offensive lineman. He plays goalie on soccer. Yeah, he's a great kid too.
Okay, Coach. Now, what are you going to tell us? I mean, tell us a little bit about this Palmdale team. What are we expecting to see on Friday night?
Yeah, so Palmdale is a little bit different than Sanji. Sanji didn't have the size, and we knew that going in that we had a size advantage on the offensive line and the defensive line. Palmdale's totally different. They have some big kids up front, 76 and 65. I think they're both 6'5", 6'6", over 300 pounds. Their middle linebacker, number 1, is 6'2", 220. Their other linebackers, 9 and 11, are 6'1", 200. They're very good. They're a very well coached team. They're disciplined and they play hard football. It's going to be a fantastic game Friday night at Ramona. We're just real excited to get round 2 going. Have a good week of practice and welcome Palmdale to Riverside and let's get it going.
Well, Coach, as always, continued success and good luck Friday night. I'm all about the Rams, as you know it, but we will be there. In fact, Hassan and I will be there Friday night to cover your game. We have another game between Poly and your River Valley foe, Patriot. So, Coach, good luck to you. and we will see you Friday night.
Thanks, brother. I appreciate it. I see Jason McMahon's right there on another screen. Just want to wish him and King good luck as they go to Salesian, and definitely Pauley and Patriot. Two Riverside schools. Real proud of both those guys. I'll see Fowler here in an hour or so at our league meeting. But just wanted to say thanks, Jeff, for what you and Gazal and Pep do week in, week out, and we will see you Friday night, brother.
Well, Coach, he is the great Ken Mashinsky, and we caught up with Coach Fowler of Patriot earlier today. Pep Fernandez had a nice interview with him. So we're going to take it away, and when we come back, we'll have more coaches here on the Coach's Perspective.
All right, thanks, Jeff. Now join us here on the Coach's Perspective. He's the head football coach for the Patriot Warriors, Chris Fowler. And Coach, here we are, quarterfinals in Division 11. You know what stuck out to me about this Warriors team, and correct me if I'm wrong, but when I look back at the last 5 or 6 games going through River Valley League, that first round opener against Los Altos, this Patriot team has played some close games. I mean, some really like one possession football games. And you guys have come out on top more times than not. What do you think it says about your team when it's close and it's coming down to the finish, you guys find a way to win?
Hey, I attribute it to the kids and to the coaching staff. These guys are true warriors. We've done a great job of putting this team together and making sure that these kids know that it's 48 minutes. We're not going to give an inch. And, it's taken 47 and a half minutes to win some of these games. So they know, and I think one of the true attributes is last year we lost to Hillcrest on the last play of the game, and because of that we didn't make the playoffs. So the kids who played on that team still have that in their mind, like, hey, we have to play this out, and we got to make sure that we play every second till the clock ticks down. So and they have this year. I think we've lost all total of our games by 15 points. So those 4 losses by 15, it's a pretty good season.
Now, Coach, I know you're a big Dallas Cowboys fan, so you're obviously probably a big fan of the triplets. But when I look at this Patriot team, I think of the duo of Isaiah Miramontes and your running back, Josiah Felix. Those two guys have been putting up monster numbers all season long. I was like, man, Patriot obviously is heavy on the run. These guys can run the football. But I was looking at Isaiah's passing numbers. They're pretty darn good, too. Like, you guys can do both.
Yeah, last year we were really run heavy, and going into the offseason we decided, hey, we finally got a kid in Marquette Moore and our other receivers, Raymond Villanueva and Devin Lehman, who we trusted throwing the ball. And that's the biggest thing I told the kids in the 7-on-7 in summer was, hey, I want to throw the ball, but I got to trust that you're going to get me 5 to 7 yards, because I know if I hand the ball to Josiah, he's going to get me 4. And Isaiah's going to run for 4. So you guys got to get me a little more. So what's happened is, early in the games, we're running the ball and teams are coming up so that we can throw late there in the game and kind of put teams away.
I was looking at Josiah's stats earlier today. I think he was averaging like 7 yards a carry. Does that sound about right?
Yeah. I mean, he's a beast. He's not looking to shy away from contact either. If you're in his way, he's going to run you wherever. He's not going to try to go around you.
Coach, when you saw the Division 11 brackets come out, when I saw it, I was like, man, this thing's wide open. Like, who knows? One of these teams is going to make a deep run. When you saw the brackets, was the message to your team, why not us? Like, hey, it could be us in the finals. We can make this run.
My message to the team was one game at a time. We're looking at Los Altos last week. That was it. What comes of it may, but, we're looking at Los Altos. Now this week, it's Riverside Poly. We get through this game, then we'll look at the next opponent. I mean, whoever steps in front of us is what we're going to do. But I'm just grateful that, our River Valley foes got in and Ramona and Hillcrest got through. And, there's 2 of us still survived in it. So I'm hopeful for that. And hopefully I don't have to play Ramona again. But if it comes down to it at the finals, hey, me and Mush, hey, we'll be all right.
Hey, us local football fans would love that, to see a River Valley League rematch in that championship game. But first things first, quarterfinals, you got Riverside Poly. Coach, without giving away all your secrets, what do you think of this Bears team? What do you think are some of the keys to get the win? Because they came on strong in the back half on the second half of the regular season.
Yeah, Coach Gilbert, I know him from a while. He coached on my staff. a couple years ago before he got the job over at PE at Harupa Valley, and then going over to Riverside Poly. So I know his way of thinking. It's kind of like mine. We're going to run the ball first and play action and pass and things like that. They play solid defense. They're not going to give away anything. They're not going to turn over the ball too much. They're going to try to limit the big plays, things like that. And so I think it's going to be a hard-fought match. And we both have that same style. We're going to grind it out, and play till that last whistle.
And finally, Coach, how much fun are you having right now? Because this is what it's all about, right? Playing meaningful games in November. You're in the playoffs. You probably feel like you've got as good a shot as anybody else in Division 11 to try to string together a couple wins, stack them up, and get to the finals. How much fun are you having?
I told the kids, you earned it. They earned the right to play these weeks. When other teams are out there, turning in their gear, you earn the right to keep playing. So just keep earning it. And, there'll be a smile on my face. A lot of my kids tell me I don't smile enough. But this week and last week, they seen the smile on my face because they've earned the right to play these games. And it's fun. Playing football in November is what it's all about. And I'm glad that these kids and these seniors have got to experience that, especially after the last 2 years where we go into those final weeks trying to get in the playoffs and not making it. This year we've made it, and we're making the best of it.
And we can't wait. It's Patriot versus Riverside Poly on Riverside TV this upcoming week. Coach Fowler, really appreciate the time. You've always been so generous with your time. Thank you so much, and best of luck this upcoming week.
Appreciate you guys and everything you do for the local area teams, and, go Warriors.
All right, that's Patriot head coach Chris Fowler here on The Coach's Perspective. Jeff, back to you.
And welcome back to the Coach's Perspective here on Riverside TV. We just heard from the great Ghazal Hassan. We heard from Ken Mashinsky, Chris Fowler, and now my buddy up on the hill at Martin Luther King High School, my dear friend I've known for 100 years, the great Jason McMains. How are you, buddy?
I'm doing great, Coach. How you been, man?
I'm not doing as well as you, obviously. Coach, you pulled off a big-time win on Friday night against a Lakewood team. Tell us about that victory.
Oh, it was great. The atmosphere was great. Being at home, got another playoff win at home. The crowd is awesome. Our red zone section was unbelievable. It's just great to see the kids make plays out there, and we knew that was key. We had to get the ball to our guys, and we were very efficient offensively. It took us a little while to get going. I think we were just kind of filling things out, but defense kept us in there the whole time. They played outstanding all game, and when we kind of got on a rhythm offensively, things started clicking very well.
Now, talking about that rhythm on offense, you've taken over the play calling this year. A lot like we've seen in the past. When you were at Notre Dame, you were at Citrus Hill. Are you enjoying calling the plays again?
I really am. It just kind of keeps me attached with the quarterback, and our guys, and really kind of being able in meetings just to kind of get their perspective and insight on some things. And so just making sure we're all on the same page, but I've always enjoyed calling the game, and, it's exciting, and obviously when you do well, it's great. When things don't go so well, obviously you got to look at yourself and you get all the criticism, but that's part of the job.
Well, everybody talks about Sam Green and Bowen. I mean, two phenomenal athletes. I think the two premier football players in the city of Riverside. But there's a lot of other moving parts that go into this prolific offense and defense from King. Can you tell us, some of the unsung heroes that maybe your big guys up front, somebody that is really the unsung hero of this ball club?
It does start up front. Christian Hicks has been a solid two-way guy for us at center and linebacker. Jake Blinko and Luke McCray have been really stout tackles for us. Jake on the right side and Luke on the left. I'm sorry, Jake on the left side and Luke on the right side. So those guys have been huge for us up front. I'd say the unsung hero really has been Riker Galvin. In the slot. That guy, not only does he do a great job when he has the ball, but just blocking on the perimeter has really, really helped our offense go. And it doesn't show up in the stat book, but he's like, we passed out hog shirts for our guys up front, and he's the only skill guy that has earned a hog shirt because of how well he blocks it. And it's kind of gotten the other guys on the perimeter wanting to get one of those shirts. So we've seen a better, from last year to this year, and a lot better effort with our blocking on the perimeter on the edge.
And I would be remiss if I don't mention Blake Bowen and Sam Green. Bowen, just came out. He was a shot in the arm the first game back, and he has really just improved with every game. What's it like been coaching him in a shortened season, and how has it been coaching Sam Green?
Well, first of all, I'll touch on Sam. He's our senior, two-way guy, and I had a meeting with the seniors last week. I always meet with the guys and just talk to them about how important they are to myself and the program. And, and for Sam, it's that conversation I had about him, kind of goes full circle. His dad coached me, the great Bob Green coached me at Jurupa Valley. He ended up teaching my kids at Jurupa Middle School. And here I am at King. In my first year, I'm coaching both his boys. I coached Robert, who was a senior my first year, and Sam was a sophomore. And now Sam's, a 3-year guy in our program. So, it's an honor to be around a kid like that who just worked so hard, and his leadership has been, second to none. So it kind of brings me to tears a little bit, knowing that, you kind of getting towards the end. Obviously we want to keep going as much as we can. But just being around him every day, I just tell him every day, I hope I make the impact on him as he did as his dad did for me and my kids. And then Blake, since coming back from to the North game, he's just been our big time playmaker. He does everything. He can run the ball. He's dangerous out on the edge as a receiver, and has been a huge part of our return game too. I think he's returned like 2 or 3 kicks, so at one point he was averaging, over 200 total yards all purpose. And, it just kind of continued, but he's definitely our go-to guy. He made a couple amazing catches on Friday, and, it's awesome to have a guy like that. Like I said, it's guys like that make our jobs a little easier when we call plays.
Yeah, he kind of I know he's a big baseball player. Reminds me a little bit of Jake Marisnik that when he was playing football over at Poly. But I'll tell you what, I think Bowen is the most dynamic football player we have in the city of Riverside, and he's been fun to watch.
Oh, he's awesome to watch. He's, not just, on Friday night, but just an awesome kid around practice. He brings the energy. And I knew he was special when he was a freshman last year, and he was beating every senior, out there in camp, in wind sprints, as a freshman. And he just brings that intensity every day. And he's just a different dude. And, to be successful and continue to move on, you have to have those guys, and he's definitely one of them.
Now, Coach, you're on the road, obviously, this week at Salesian. What can you tell us about their program?
They're 9-1, no, 10-1 right now. They've had a great season. They definitely are pretty big and stout up front. They got some good athletic kids on the edges. Our quarterback is a very good dual threat guy. So we'll have our hands full on the defensive side, and from, our offensive perspective going against their defense, they, like I said, they got a couple of D linemen that are pretty good. They got some cover guys, that I think could, that try to match up against our guys, and it'll be a good second round test on the road.
Well, Coach, it is always fun to talk to you. And once again, I think this is your second year in a row with a win in the playoffs.
It is, and we're excited about it, but we just know that we still can go more, go further, and we got definitely a talented special group, and we look forward to the challenge on Friday, and hopefully it'd be nice to get all 3 Riverside teams in the semifinals. It'd be that'd be something to kind of get you guys some work. And, maybe you can add the King helmet up there behind the Ramona and Paulie helmet.
I have it. I have the King helmet. Oh, the King helmet's over on our other side. It's over there. I should have put it up there. But yes, we do have the King helmet. Well, Coach, it is always great to talk to you. And, you and I are dear friends on and off the field. Oh, wait, here comes my guy. He's going to fix it right now. Here it is. Hold on. Here, let's just put it right here right here. Watch it right there, my friend.
There we go.
Well, Coach, thank you again. Like I said, you're a dear friend on and off the field, and good luck Friday night so we can see you next week in the semifinals of the CIF.
Appreciate it, man. Thank you so much for everything you do, man.
Well, he is the great coach, Jason McMains, and that will do it for today's playoff version of the Coach's Perspective here on Riverside TV. Join us Friday nights. We have a doubleheader. We're going to have the Red Zone, or the Pep Zone as we like to call it, as well. So tune in Friday night. We'll have all the scores, highlights, and interviews from all the Riverside schools and beyond. For everybody here at the City of Riverside, Pep Fernandez, Ghazal Hassan, all the coaches that joined me today, thank you, and we will see you Friday night at the game.